Hello, 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 everybody. Hello. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. I'm sorry I'm starting to show off a little late for those of you all who are plugging in. This is Coffee Tea, You and Me. I'm Coach Powell. I help entrepreneurs, business leaders, sales professionals, professionals of all different types get their act together and do the right things, right? It's so important that you know everything you need to know to be successful in your business and in your life. And that's my job, to help not just provide you the information, but provide you the motivation, the training, everything you need to move the needle forward for your life, for your business, and everything that you care about. And it's really simple in terms of discussing it. It's very complicated in terms of actual management and science and principles that you need to embrace. And so for those of you who know me know that I do everything out of systems. I do everything out of strategy. I try to make sure that I teach people to the best of my ability how to execute everything they need to execute to achieve their vision, to make sure their goals are taken care of, to understand their mission, to focus on their habits that they need to embrace, and to make the right kinds of connections. All of that, all of those 5 elements that I just mentioned to you are incorporated in my Vision Quest 90 process. This is a process I've been using over the last 20 years to help leaders grow, to help them achieve, to help them get over the hurdles that they find, face the barriers that they have to face, deal with the challenges that they have to deal with. And I love it. I love it. I can't think of anything more I'd rather do than to help small women and minority-owned business leaders learn how to grow and continue to grow no matter what barriers face them. Speaking of barriers, I got a conference coming up in early November. It's called the Leverage Up Conference. The whole goal of the Leverage Up Conference is to introduce a whole level of discussion to the small business world to make sure that they understand the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and ecosystem barriers that they may want to prepare themselves to deal with no matter what. My heart was broken when so many entrepreneurs closed their doors, left their business because of COVID-19. When this happened, we were not prepared. And the reason why we weren't prepared is because even those who followed all of the advice that was typically given by all the small business experts, the small business administration, and everybody else when it comes to learning how to manage effective business operations, pretty much led them astray, because all the rules that were at play at the time, your basic, oh, you need to have 6 to 12 months of your income saved, so that if something happens to your business, you have some 6 to 12 months to float, right? Or you need another year, maybe a year and a half of revenue dollars that you can generate that are just your expenses for your business, so that you can make sure that you can pay your people if something happens. Well, even the best businesses that had all the right financial situations going on, had the right savings, the right investment strategy, the right risk mitigation strategies, they weren't ready for a pandemic that affected their business for 2.5 years. They weren't ready for a workforce that wasn't really going to come back to work because they discovered more ways to work. They weren't ready for that, and they didn't have plans for that, because they didn't understand the systems and the things that could have affected them. They had been predicting a pandemic for years before COVID. Who was standing there, with the right kinds of procedures in place, the right kinds of processes in place to make sure their leaders, their organizations weren't negatively or adversely affected by the pandemic? Very few, if any, I will say. And I don't want to see that happen again. I don't want to see another small business close its doors because it wasn't prepared for the macro issues that could happen to their business, and they had no thought, no risk mitigation plan, no strategy, nothing that's going to help them figure out how to overcome those hurdles without the federal government having to step in and rescue them. I mean, big businesses have to be rescued all the time. Again, it's because they didn't take the time to do the right kinds of planning, right? So they can make the right kinds of decisions in the midst of a situation that's going to help them grow. So if you've been with me for a while, I've been talking for weeks now about execution. What execution is, how execution works. We've been talking about skills. We've been talking about habits. We've been talking about technique. We've been talking about the tactics that you have to use. We're going to talk today about the most important aspect of your execution plan, your execution strategy. We're talking, yes, about strategy, being strategic, what that does for you and how that helps you. Now, I want you to think about this. There's a lot of times people think, well, I can't be strategic because I don't know what the future holds. And yes, it is true. You're going to have to be strategic, and you're going to have to plan to be in business for the long haul. If you're running a business, you have to think way past your lifetime, even. Unless you just want to close the doors and walk away from a potential asset, I would suggest you think about the long haul. What do I mean by that? How can you be in business, your business, successfully in perpetuity? You have to ask that question. Whether you're a nonprofit organization, or you're a for-profit organization, or you're an entity of an arm of another organization, how can you do it? Keep providing more value, keep generating more revenue and growth, and do it sustainably forever. If you have plans and thought processes and ideas about how to structure that and how to maneuver through that, then I got a feeling that you're going to be a long way towards making sure that the next pandemic doesn't blow you out of the water. So strategic thinking is different than tactical thinking. It's different than technical techniques, right? And it's different than skills. But you need all 4 aspects of what I like to call the execution continuum, which includes your skills, your techniques, your tactics, and your strategy in order to move forward, whether it's personally or within a corporation or a small business, you need to understand how all these different things work. So we talked about the other stuff. You can go back and look at other episodes and figure all that out. Today, we're going to talk about strategy. And there's a quote that I want to share with you to start. And this quote literally comes from me. So it's a pretty good quote if you don't mind if I say so myself. If technique wins the hearts and minds of the moment, it's wisdom come up with the wrong skills, the wrong tactics, and so therefore their technique is not at a high level. It's not at the way in the space that it should be when they need to be able to perform and need to be able to do the things that they need to do. So where does the strategy come in? The strategy comes in, like I said earlier, to win the long game, to play the long view. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and perpetuity. That's where the strategy comes in. Many of our greatest leaders have understood the importance of keeping a strategic focus. For example, I love this quote from Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill says, however beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. People sometimes they fall so in love with their plan. They fall so in love with their thinking and the way they've decided to go about accomplishing things. They've gone about accomplishing things. They don't take the time to sometimes measure the results. So look at what you're actually accomplishing and the pace of accomplishment. So what do I mean by that? Anything you want to accomplish has at least two measurements associated with it, right? There's lead measures and there's lag measures. Lead measures are the activity, the habits that you need to put in place to keep the momentum going, to keep the process moving forward in whatever strategy you're going to use. The results, however, are usually lag measures. You measure that when you finally decided that it's time to measure that thing, right? So if you're trying to lose weight incrementally, you need to go and get on a scale to see what's working, see what's not working. And the scale is a lag measure. But in the meantime, daily on a regular consistent basis, you need to measure calories in, calories out. How many calories did you burn? How many calories did you bring in? And that is going to tell you if you're doing the right thing in the moment. Now, your strategic trajectory is all dependent on you being able to accomplish the lead measures. The lag measures only tell you if you were winning or you're not winning. Are you meeting your goals or you're not meeting your goals? If you never take a look at it, you could be falling in love with the process and not with the win. And you're not getting the results that you want to get. You're getting results, but you're not getting the same results that you necessarily want to get at the pace that you want to get them. And so that's where your strategy needs to take an adjustment. And you got to be okay with that. I say doctor, but it's not. It's General Norman Schwarzkopf said, leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. The person who has strategic mindset generally has the character needed to pull that strategy together. whether that's finding the resources, finding the talent, finding the people, finding whatever they need to have to get done and implement the strategy. Execute, create it, make it happen, right? That has to happen. What I love, amongst many things when it talks about strategy, is the fact that we've always thought, and our leaders have always thought about strategy. Way back in the Bible days, right? Some of the best quotes in the Bible point to 4 key realities that we need to make sure that we're always doing when it comes to dealing with strategy, right? 1, be smart enough to seek wise counsel. You can't be out there by yourself swinging for the fences thinking you're doing something if you don't even know what you're doing. You need to seek wise counsel. You need to be smart enough, and this is intelligent, right, to find people who have resources, find people who have talent, find people who have information that you don't have, so that when you put together your strategy, you're doing it from a position of power, a position of wisdom, a position of strength. The second thing you need to think about is being able to think beyond your own comprehension. This goes along with rule number 1. How do you seek wise counsel if you don't get other people's perspective, right? You have to think beyond your own comprehension. This is where diversity comes in. This is where equity and inclusion and acceptance comes in. If you don't think from a well-rounded point of view, which means you can't think just in your own mind, you have to put all these ideas together and see what other people think about it from different perspectives, different ages, different races, different religions. Try to get as much involved as you possibly can. They don't all have to work for you. No, they don't all have to sign a disclosure agreement to get ideas on the table. You just have to be able to know how to communicate effectively to make that happen. Be open to ideas, first of all, from other people, and then figure out ways to help them share them. And there are 1,000 different ways we can talk about that, but it's super important that you think beyond yourself. Think beyond what you are going to be served by and who and how you can serve others in the process. Number 3, the Bible teaches us you're supposed to be resilient. We've always talked about this. You have to have a strategy for recovery. You have to have a strategy for renewal, a strategy to reclaim your position after you rest. You don't want to just relax and put it down and not think about it ever again. You want to get ready. You want to get rejuvenated. You want to find ways to renew your strength so you can get back in the game. You can't be resilient if you can't get back in the game. You can't be flexible. You can't be strong. You can't, bend like a reed like you need to, right? Sometimes in order to make something happen, you have to be resilient. And that requires you to purposefully, constantly find ways to rejuvenate. And there's all kinds of things you need to do about that. So it helps you to build your strength. To be resilient, you have to build your strength. You have to build your knowledge base. You have to build your resources. You have to assemble the right kind of team. And that's going to help you be resilient. It's going to help you be stronger. The last thing you need to think about, and we kind of already mentioned it, is to renew your mindset regularly. Always get yourself emotionally and mentally prepared to get back in the game and play at a higher level than before. You need to bring increasing amounts of intensity. And so whatever you need to learn to do to create better and more energy and more focus and more passion and more power, that's what you got to do during your time of recovery and renewal and rejuvenation, right? Again, don't just go chill out somewhere for a couple of days, claim a victory or win, say you deserve to do something crazy that's going to take you out of the game. You gotta take the time, assess your needs, and do what you can to bring yourself back to a high level of energy. Now, a lot of times people get confused between tactics and strategy. And when you're talking tactics and strategy, you got to keep a couple of things in mind. When you're talking and you have a strategic mindset, you have visionary thinking, right? You're not just thinking about how am I going to get a goal done. You're thinking about how I'm going to achieve a major vision, right? You take a proactive approach to strategy. Tactics might be something you do situationally, meaning you see the situation coming up and now you got to enjoy the right set of skills, the right set of tactics to pull this off, whatever you need to do to get past this particular goal or objective or whatever that is. You don't, but strategies, which you take a proactive approach, meaning you're looking and casting forward, you're already thinking about all the potential objections, all the potential barriers, all the potential roadblocks, and you've coming up with mitigation strategies to get you over, around, through whatever the challenges might be in front of you, right? You're doing that proactively. That's strategic, right? You're constantly growing and learning. You're embracing constant growth and learning. You're not going to be able to be strategic if you're not constantly growing and learning. Why? Because you're going to run up against a barrier on your way to wherever you're going. You're going to run up against a barrier that you cannot overcome because you haven't learned how, or you don't have the resources or the power or the strength to overcome that barrier. So unless along the way you're constantly learning and growing, your tactics aren't even going to work for you, because the situation that you find yourself in might not be a situation you've ever faced before. And you might be a little confused. It might be a stumbling block. And it might be something that takes you out of the running, takes you out of the race, takes you out of the forward flow or whatever you're trying to accomplish. The fourth thing, the strategic mindset, is something that you have to understand about the strategic mindset is about influencing your organizational trajectory. Yes. There's got to be a sense of destiny, a sense of belief that something is going to happen. There's a hope that something's going to happen, and it's not an impractical hope. It's a probable hope based on your level of ability to create the right kind of plan, the right strategy. So if you have the right strategy in place, of course you should have hope. Of course you should have high expectations that something amazing can happen. When you do, exactly what you want to have happen has the highest chance of happening because you've put together the right kinds of plans. And of course, the strategic mindset is really, there's no way to empower yourself more than creating a wonderful plan. I ask people the question always, do you have a well-written, well-executed plan that you're working from that will guarantee your success in whatever you're trying to do? If you don't, the question then is, why not? I'm going to take a quick break, and I want you to think of some questions about your strategic trajectory, about the things that you need to do to move the needle to your long-term goals, the greatest acquisition plans that you could think of that may create vision around what you need to do. And I'm going to take a quick break. We'll play a little bit of our theme music, bring that back for you for a second. And then I'll be back in a few short minutes. I can get this thing to turn back on again. Here we go. All right. Okay, we are back. This is Coach Powell, Chang Development. Welcome to Coffee Tea, you and me. We were talking before the break about strategy, and I was hoping to grab some comments from the listening audience, but there aren't in the box, so we're going to keep this party going. What do you think about when you think about your strategy? How does it affect you? How does it help you? How does it help you grow? Well, guess what? Science has already done the work. I've given you some of the great quotes from the literature. I've given you some thoughts about what the Bible says. Let's talk about what science says about strategic thinking. Strategic thinking happens for all of us in our brain in what's called the prefrontal cortex. This is the place that allows us to expand out and think about future thoughts. It allows us to, it's where our executive function is. It allows us to project forward the possibilities of something, right? And that helps us now to begin to imagine the possibilities. And it helps us to really focus on creating the reality, any reality that we want to create. So that's thing one. Thing two, there are neurotransmitters in place, and there are two specific hormones that help us when it comes to finding the energy, finding the passion, finding the right kinds of feeling that we need to have to solve problems or to deal with a debate situation or a situation where we have to provide an argument or a discussion or something that's going to be of influence, right? So we need those neurotransmitters, and the two neurotransmitters are adrenaline and dopamine. These things are magical because when they are that system is functioning correctly, then we have what we need chemically to be in the game, engaged in whatever we're doing, right? The other thing that happens when we tap into our cognitive enhancement, when we tap into our brain and we really focus on strategic thinking and we do it a lot, all of a sudden our capabilities when it comes to cognitive reasoning begin to increase. We begin to be better at critical thinking. We begin better at divergent and convergent thinking, all of that, right? So we get to see far and wide, but also get to focus. And it's a constant growth in terms of our ability to do that quickly, right? Because we're building the building blocks that are needed to enhance our cognitive development, right? So it's super important. And working with, and one of the things that people do in order to truly increase their brain capacity and their strategic thinking capacity is they play what's called behavioral game theory. This is useful in helping you build the neurons of your brain and to make sure that, things happen according to the right processes that need to happen so you can access the memories correctly, you can access the information correctly to move you forward in your thinking, right? But there are a lot of challenges to being more strategic. I'm not going to go through them all. There was more than 13, but I'm going to go through some of the things that I think challenge most of us, right, in today's busy, ongoing business world. Zoom fatigue is one of the larger challenges to our cognitive development and our ability to have strategic thinking, right? So it's real. And the way a lot of that is combated is to learn how to take breaks between meetings, to get up, to stretch, to drink water, to learn to breathe, to take care of, the things that you need to take care of to keep yourself moving forward, and be intentional about that, right? That's how you keep, because too many back to back on camera, on video meetings can lead to fatigue, and that could cause you to start to be foggy and not make great decisions and to become overwhelmed and tired, and over a period of time, you're going to start to cause problems with your cognitive abilities. Learning how to align your proposals with priority issues. If you're going to suggest a change in your organization, you need to suggest that change based on what you see as the relevant priorities that your organization either already has or really should have, and they know they should have them, but they don't have them organized yet in a way in your job, and you're actually in your proposals helping them to create that organization, right? Because there's some people who can execute very well, but they have a hard time with strategic thinking. And if you have an easier time of it and you know how to do it better, then you might want to make some proposals about some things that add that process into whatever you're doing. The biggest killer of the strategic mindset is literally time management. Let's call it what it is. It's the truth. Leaders who don't manage their time well are always going to be overwhelmed. It's the pace of our society right now. You have to be able to have some controls over your to-do list, your schedule, your calendar, your notes, and your contacts. All 5 of these things have to be in concert with each other. So this way, your habits, your activity, you have control over, right? Your calendar and your schedule, you understand what's coming up. You can be prepared for it. You can block out time to do whatever levels of preparation you have to do. You have time to even, do some planning and reflection. Hello, very, very important, right? Your ability to integrate whatever notes that you were able to take and ever learning you were ever able to achieve along the way towards anything. So that's where you might want to add your reflections. That might be where you want to add things that you need to remember, and then put those things back into your schedule, your calendar, and consistently move forward, right? You also have to have your goals in there, your values, your principles. They all have to align correctly so that you can behave correctly and that you can do the things you need to do to move you and your team forward. Leaders get messed up all the time. And it's super important that if you're going to help your team become more strategic, that you learn how to ask strategic questions. Encourage them to ask questions like, when it's all said and done, what will we be able to be, do, and have as a result of our initiatives, as a result of our program, as a result of our progress, as a result of what does success look like? When we are successful, what will we be able to be, do, and have? I love be, do, and have, by the way, because it helps to paint a picture and visualize for people what the end goal, that lag measure, might look like, and what is and how you stay focused on that direction, right? No matter what tactics or techniques or strategy you use, are you getting to the goal? Are you getting closer to it? How close are you to it? What's the percentage that you need to move forward, and what's keeping you from getting there faster? When you ask those strategic questions and people begin to ponder them, sometimes they come up with shortcuts that they didn't come up with before when they started the planning session or when they created the first initial plan, right? So there's got to be some flexibility in there, right? Observe and reflect. If you cannot observe and reflect, you're not going to remain strategic. Because as I said before, as you're moving forward, there's going to be things that happen that are going to derail you, get you off course, slow you down. And if you don't have a risk mitigation plan in effect, how you're going to deal with risk, you might not ever get back on the track. You might not ever start moving in the right direction again. Maybe you start moving in a different direction altogether. So you got to be very careful to observe and reflect. Plan time in your schedule on your strategic plan or on your project plan or whatever plan you have to observe and reflect. you also you have to consider opposing ideas. To teach people to, when they're looking at their strategic plans, or have they thought about the opposition? Have they thought about people that might come against you? Have you thought about alternative ideas to what you want to do, and who might embrace those alternative ideas and beat you to the end game? Because it might be some more expensive resources that they have that you don't have, or they might have more training and development on those resources that they could get, that your competition can get, that you can't get. You got to know all this stuff so you can figure out the best way to move forward. Also, I'm a big believer in this. Embrace formal training. Yes, get your you-know-what in class. And it's never been easier because there are massive online communities of various types of classes and organizations that are out there that never existed before. And they're cheap and free. Some of them are free. You can take certain courses online for free. You can get certifications. It might cost you a little bit, but not a whole lot. Not anywhere near compared to, doing. But guess what? Online training counts as formal learning. So why not embrace it? Right. Number 5, act strategically. Learn how to act strategically. Strategic thinkers always know what is our end game. They always know what's in front of me. They always are thinking about what's next because they're being strategic. Number 6, embrace the discomfort of not knowing. Oh my God, this is one of my favorite ones. You have to learn how to work in ambiguity. You cannot know every answer to every question along the way to what your goal is. You're going to find that as you get started, you may have thought you covered all the barriers, you got all the opportunities, you got risk mitigation strategies in place if this happens or that happens. That's great, but you're not always going to be able to see what's happening, and you're always not going to have the time or the resources to plan your way through it. Sometimes you got to go with your gut. Sometimes you just got to stop planning and get started because it's time to get started, or you'll have no shot at getting to where you're trying to get to in a reasonable manner, or at a reasonable time, or reasonable pace, right? Embracing discomfort. I like working in ambiguity. Number 7, distinguish between complicated and complex. Your strategic thinking should have definite blocks, all right? This is the easy stuff. This is the complex stuff. We're going to do the easy stuff as much as we can right up front, even if it's out of sequence. Then when we get to the complicated stuff, some of the easy stuff is already getting done, and it's going to be less complications because the easy stuff is already done. Think about how you can figure out which at the pace of how you're going to do easy, hard, easy. Mix and match sometimes. Sometimes you need to do 2 easy things, 1 hard thing, another 2 easy things. So that way, you don't burn out, or you can keep your team going faster over longer periods of time. Because they have time during the easy stuff as recovery time, actually. And you're still being productive, but you're also recovering. Right? So think about that. Your communication skills have to be absolutely on point. You have to be able to discuss complex issues. You have to be able to communicate very difficult problems and processes. You have to be willing to face and collaborate with various different issues that will help you consensus build and ensure that everyone is working from some type of shared goals. All this is possible with great communication. The last thing that you need to empower the leaders that you work with is to learn and teach them how to improve their problem-solving skills. You got to be able to address challenges. You got to be able to understand the problem before you can address it, right? So that means you got to listen, you got to do your research, you got to do your homework, you got to pay attention, and then you can craft effective solutions. All of this is what strategic mindset is all about. Next week, we're going to conclude our series on execution by showing you an actual plan that I put together. I put together years ago as an example of how you might want your plans to look. And it has all the elements of a wonderful plan. It's who you need to know, right? It's what kind of mindset you need to have. It's what kind of habits that you do embrace. It's what is the suspense and the pace of activity that you're going to do on a weekly, monthly, annual basis. How are you going to deal with the gaps between where you are today and where you're going to be in the future? And all of that is involved with coming up with the right kinds of strategic plays that you need to come up with to be a winner in whatever you're trying to do. So I'm looking forward to showing you the skeleton forms and the different things that you could do to begin to put the right plan, the right structure together for you. This is Coach Powell. Hope you had a great time. I know I did. I'm out of here because it's nap time for your boy. See you later, guys.